Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to Center Court, our festival for the specialized master's degrees. This is our last panel of the day. We've had a lot of really great sessions exploring the whole panoply of specialized master's degrees in business. There are lots of them. They come in many different varieties. You can pretty much study everything that matters to business and organizations in a program like this. Today, we have four incredible schools, four great representatives of those schools to talk about their different programs that run the course of analytics and finance and media management and information systems and accounting and commerce and supply chain and more. So, without further ado, let me introduce everyone. From New York, the Big Apple, we have Lawrence Murray from Fordham University's Gabelli School of Business. Lawrence is a senior dean there and can speak very well about their analytics, their finance, their media management programs. In fact, Fordham has, according to my count, now, Lawrence, you can correct me, you have 11 specialty master's degrees in-house on campus and then 3 online.
Correct.
That's a big portfolio.
It is.
And then we'll go to Ann Arbor, one of the great college towns in the United States. Julia Hoffert is with Michigan's Ross School of Business, of course, and she is Assistant Director of Admissions. And at Michigan Ross, there are 3 specialty master's degrees, one in accounting, one in a master in management called the MIM, and then one in supply chain management. And we'll get into all those and which ones might be best suited for you and how they differ from each other. We'll go to another great college town in Virginia, in Charlottesville, where we have Emma Candelier, who's Assistant Dean of Graduate Marketing and Pre-Experience Recruiting. You know, many of these specialty master's programs are so-called pre-experience programs, which means essentially you do not have to have any work experience. You can graduate from your undergraduate institution, go straight into these master's programs that really prepare you for a great job. McIntire, according to my account, has 6 specialty master's programs in business, from the management of IT to global commerce to business analytics. And we'll talk all about them as well in a moment. And then we have Bipin, who I spent some time with in a fireside chat not long ago, which you'll be able to see as well, where we dive deep into the Masters in Information Systems at Indiana University's Kelley School of Business. Yet another great college town, Bloomington, Indiana. A fantastic place to spend some time. And Bipin is the chair of the Info Systems graduate program. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
You know what I want to talk about first? I want to talk about the benefits of specialization versus a more general business degree, be it an MBA or be it even a master's in management. What are, Lawrence, to your mind, the benefits of specializing at a young age?
I think one of the benefits is being able to jump in very quickly with an organization. You have a very defined skill set deep in one particular area. I think when companies are looking for talent, early talent, they are looking for folks who can come in very quickly. They can sort of drop into place, and those students can immediately have impact on the execution side, mostly on the execution side. So I think one of the benefits of that specialization early is develop that deep skill set very early to have immediate impact.
Yeah, and that's a key point because, you know, in the old days, when I was growing up, no one wants to hear that, right? But back then, in let's say the 60s, 70s, even some of the 80s, many companies had training programs, and they were very willing to hire undergraduates and put them in the year-long programs where they were basically taught the basics of that business. But, you know, companies do not do that anymore. Very few companies do that. They want you to be, as Bipin says, work ready. Meaning from day one, you're making a contribution, and you can only make a contribution from day one if you have a skill set and the tools to do it with. And that's what a specialty master's degree really does. Julia, why have these degrees proved so popular in more recent years?
I think in our world of fast, 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 the goal and the idea of finishing a specialized or even one might call generalized master management program in a year's time allows people to get the skills that they're looking for and immediately get those tools out there. People are eager to use the knowledge that they have gained both in their undergraduate and then if they go right to the grad program. And so there is the benefit of less time and ready to rock and roll when they're done.
We want you to be ready to rock and roll.
Absolutely.
These programs make you ready to rock and roll. Definitely, definitely. Bipin, I was watching a video of you earlier today where you were essentially saying the demand for students out of your master's in information systems was so great that you couldn't fill it. Is that still true?
That is still true. There's a little bit of softening with companies just treading water this year, but we are predicting that it's going to come back with probably a much bigger force as soon as we get past the current cycle with the pandemic and with the election. Right. Part of it is that the skill set, as we just said, of being work ready, being able to add value to the business on day one, that does take a little bit more education than a broad-based undergraduate degree can easily provide.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And Emma, in your 6 specialty master's degrees in business, what kind of demand are you seeing?
We're starting to see actually a very diversified demand across multiple industries and companies. I think companies and employers today are looking for people who can come in, as Bipin said, who are work ready, who are client ready, who have the tangible and practical skill sets, but also the creative and analytical side of problem solving that business can give so that they can really make an impact. And so in terms of our hiring of, at least today, what we're seeing, we haven't really seen that much of a slowdown. Obviously, the format and delivery of the hiring process has changed. But I think the demand for graduates within a specialized master's is definitely there.
Right. So let's go to the basics, basically. Tell me about your programs. How long are they? What's the size of an intake? And we may not be able to cover, in detail every single one, particularly at Fordham where you have 14. So you might want to specialize in your specialty masters. Lawrence, give us the big picture at Fordham.
Yeah, sure. We've got a range of specialized master's programs that range from 1 academic year, so 30 credits over the course of a fall and a spring, and they go all the way up to 42 credit hours, which for those students it's typically 2 years. And again, it's a broad range of some of those core foundational areas in business. We've got 2 finance programs, 2 accounting programs, 2 sort of technology and analytics-based programs, media management, and general management. But it's a wide spectrum of specialized masters.
And do these programs share certain common elements?
They do. So some of the more analytics-based courses do share some common classes in some of those foundational skills and competencies around basic analytics, statistics, economics, finance, and accounting. They share across those programs.
Do they all start at the same time?
They do. 99% of them start in the fall, and we have a couple of programs that start in the spring, but the vast majority of our students start, we have a fall intake.
And other than the 3 online options, I'm assuming that the 11 on-campus ones are full-time programs.
They are. Some of them do have a part-time option, but the vast majority of the students are pre-professional students, so very little work experience, and they're taking classes full-time.
Okay, great. Now, Julia, I know that your MIM is 10 months long. So
That's
your
correct.
supply chain management program, your accounting program is 8 months, right?
Yes, that's correct. So our 3 programs, as you mentioned, were Master of Accounting. So students in that program obviously have a very specific career track that they're looking to do. Our Master of Management program and our Master of Supply Chain Management program both start in the summer semesters and are 10 months long.
And what kind of intake are you bringing in? What's the size of these?
Yeah, it's interesting. So if I were to stack them from smallest to largest, it would be supply chain management, accounting, and then Master of Management. We have seen a great growth of interest in the Master of Management realm and world, and so we are responding to that.
Oh, that's great. Now, I also know that your supply chain program is STEM certified.
That's correct.
So for an international student, that means that after you graduate, you can apply for STEM designation and a 36-month shot at OPT, which
Yes.
makes it much more likely that you can get a job in a STEM-related field.
Yes, and I would say that is one of the great advantages, but speaking a little bit to what Bipin mentioned about his students, we have found that the demand for the supply chain graduates is also very high. So the OPT is a great bonus, but the demand for this particular skill set is also, we could give more out there. We just don't have as many students as we could do.
I bet you Amazon hires some of those students.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amazon is one of the interesting and obviously huge platforms for this world, as is Walmart. That's a very big platform for our students as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Emma, give us your sense of the basics of your different programs.
Yeah, I'm actually going to focus, John, on two of our pre-experience programs, the MS in Commerce, which is a Master's in Management, a MIM program, and the other MIM is a Master's in Global Commerce. So one is for business majors and one is for non-business majors. The MS in Commerce is actually STEM designated as well. It's a little bit different in that it offers the general management program and curriculum, but it also has 3 tracks that students can specialize in. So it's a bit of a marriage between general management and a track such as business analytics, finance, or marketing and management. That is a 10-month program. We've seen, as Julia mentioned with her program, definite interest, particularly from the domestic market in the Master's in Management program. And our intake is typically anywhere from 120 to 130 students a year. Wow. The Master's in Global Commerce is pretty unique. That is designed for business majors. The typical class size for that is about 40 to 50 students. It's a very international program in that McIntire UVA has partnered with 2 other business schools, Lingnan University College in China and Asade Business School in Spain. So this is actually also a 10-month pre-experience degree, but students study, travel, and live together across 3 continents and focus on global strategic management.
And your use of the word commerce to me is very interesting because, you know, it's less common than simple like business or management. So we should point out that, you know, the name of the UVA school is the McIntire School of Commerce. And it goes back many, many years. And when everyone referred to business as commerce, and that's a tradition that you've upheld, even in the naming of these specialty master's degrees. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Bipin, what does your program look like? I know you have one sequence where if you're an Indiana University student, you take a 5th year and you can do the program in 2 semesters and get your master's in information systems. And if you're not, and you're coming from another school, you can actually apply as a junior. And is it 2 semesters for you as well, or is it 3 semesters if you come from another school?
So actually, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Of course, it always has to be.
It always has to be, right? So instead of, so our standard program is 10 months, which presupposes that you have a major in information systems from a business school or in computer science or informatics with a minor in business, right? So if you have that kind of an academic background when you come in, it is a 10-month program. Irrespective of where you come from. So, you could come from any university. If you meet the academic requirements, it could be a 10-month program. For the rest of the student body, which should be people that are coming in from a wide, diverse variety of backgrounds, including the humanities, the social sciences, the hard sciences, for them, the duration is typically 18 months. In some cases, it could go as long as 24 months, which really depends on the student's interest. So some of them, since they are completely switching fields, want to do what we call an extended internship. So we allow internships of 3 months, 7 or 8 months, or 11 months. And if they do 11 months, then the program becomes 24 months. But they're earning for pretty much 1 year out of that. So they come out with 1 year of full-time work experience, and they're able to showcase to the employers what they did during their internship.
Right. And for someone like me, a poet, one of the reasons why it would take longer is because there are certain prerequisites, right?
That's correct. So what we have done is we've created a summer program called the Jumpstart program. It's a 12-week boot camp. We start out with 4 weeks of technology, then we switch to 4 weeks of business, and then we switch back to 4 weeks of technology, a week off, and then they merge with the rest of the program and be part of the full-time cohort starting in the fall.
Bipin, talk a little bit about your latest incoming class. What does it look like? Where are they from? What's the international domestic makeup, the gender makeup, age, work experience, the usual stuff that you see in a class profile?
Right. So the class we just brought in, we had 128 students. We were expecting about 160. We had more than 160 confirmed. And then because of the visa situation related to the pandemic, for the international students, we have a June start, and many of our students come from India or China or other parts of Asia, and that was, all the US consulates were closed, so there was no way for them to get here.
Yeah.
And part of our value proposition is the quintessential campus town experience of being in Bloomington, the close ties, the close interaction with the faculty. And we decided that rather than try and create some kind of a hybrid model for them, that we would just encourage them to defer by a year. Which in hindsight turned to be a very good thing. We also decided we are not going to do a January start or a special start, which end up being all international students. So my current class is 80% domestic US students and 20% international. All but one of them did their undergraduate degrees in the US. A typical class size would be about 40% international. So coming up on fall of 2021, I would expect to bring in somewhere in the 160 to 180 range. We will, we are shooting for about 40% women, at least 10% underrepresented minorities, and those two numbers are very important in terms of creating that diversity. So our goal is, with that cohort model, we create static teams of 4 students that work together over the entire semester. So we want to create teams that are made up of 4 people that are completely different, right? So somebody from a business background, somebody from a technical background, somebody from a humanities, liberal arts, sciences background, and then maybe an international student who did not go to school in the US, right? So that creates a very rich learning experience where they're learning not just from the classroom, from the professors, but also from each other.
And the average age of a student is what?
So the average age should be right around 23. Most of them are rolling out of the undergrad program, and then we get usually a few international students that might have about 2 years, 3 years of experience.
Right, great, thank you. And Emma, for your 2 commerce programs, what do the latest incoming classes look like?
So we have 130 in the MS in Commerce program this year. We too saw quite a few of our international, and actually a handful of our domestic students decided to defer their entrance for a year. They just wanted the experience of doing it completely in person, or they had difficulties obtaining a visa or travel restrictions of just being able to get here. So we ended up deferring a rather large group, but we have 130, 85% are domestic, which is abnormally high for us. And of that, it's, I think, about just over 50% are actually from UVA. Typically, what that program looks like is maybe a third of the class came from UVA undergrad and the rest from other schools. About 25 to 30% typically are international students, and then close to 40% of the class are women, 25% minority. for the MS in Global Commerce, with the just the nature of the program and the fact that it is actually requires travel and studying in 3 different locations, we actually put that program on hiatus this year and deferred all of our students who were admitted to the following year. Obviously, that was kind of disappointing for the students, but absolutely could not deliver the program the way it was meant to be if we couldn't get to the other 2 locations, or if we couldn't get all of our students here. So typically that program is about 40 to 50 students, usually about 15 to 18 nationalities represented, so very diverse international cohort. And that's a bit unusual in that all 3 schools actually admit students into that program. So McIntire only admits 20 to 25 students per year, and the other schools also admit.
Now, do all the students in that particular program spend time on all 3 campuses?
They do. So they all start as a cohort here at UVA in Charlottesville, and they spend the first 15 weeks at the University of Virginia, and then they have a nice long winter break, reconvene in Guangzhou, China, and they spend 9 weeks there. That's lovely. They get to actually experience the Chinese New Year during that time. And then what would be a spring break is when they then relocate to Barcelona, Spain, and conclude the program for the remaining 15 weeks, and then actually graduate at ESADE.
Great. And Julia, the class makeup of your 3 programs, you mentioned that supply chain is the smallest. I wonder if that's the most international class.
Absolutely. Typically, the supply chain management class is almost 80 to 85% international students.
Wow, what is that this year? Yeah.
Yeah, so this year, much like my colleagues here, we offered a generous deferral option for our students who, some of them could have come in person, but simply just didn't feel safe or needed the extra time. So we're actually about 50% international this year, where we're used to having more towards the 80 to 85% international.
Did you bring down the class size as well, or no?
You know, it is slightly lower than we had anticipated. We're sitting at about 31 students in that program. We anticipated between 35 to 38. So it is not that much lower than what we were initially sort of anticipating, but we certainly were excited to welcome the ones that we had already admitted and were ready to come. So it's always hard to have to wait a year, but we're excited to see them next year. What's your gender split for supply chain? Supply chain, I would say for this particular group, it's about a third female for this incoming class. And as with any other situation, we're excited to see more women head into the STEM field. And I hope to see more applicants from the female groups as well as from underrepresented minorities. And your other 2 programs? Our other 2 programs, so despite this incredible thing called a global pandemic, we had a real banner year for our Master of Management program. We went from a class of 90 the previous year to a class of 123 this year. And in terms of the breakout of women, it stands at over 60% female for this particular group. And our Master of Management program has classically always been largely domestic. So the percentages of international students are standing at around the 10% mark. That's not different for us. That's pretty typical. The Master of Accounting program, did you want me to talk about that, John? Yeah, please. Great. So that program is about a third international students. We did have a decent group of international students who did defer, much like everyone else in the situation. And that class is at around 56 students this year. Right, great, okay. And Lawrence, I don't know, you want to focus on analytics, finance, media management. You pick your 3 and let's get into the nitty gritty class profiles of them.
Yeah, sure. Again, our class sizes range, right, from our smallest intake is about 30 students, and our largest intake this fall was about 130 students in our business analytics program. Right? Business analytics, and then our quantitative finance program. Business analytics is our largest program, followed very closely by finance, our general finance program, and then our quantitative finance program. So those, actually, I have to be honest, we were very surprised pleasantly surprised at how many students joined us this year. Like many of my colleagues mentioned, our demographics shifted for us quite significantly. Usually we're sitting about 75% international students. It's a very strong, diverse set of international students, but a very strong contingent from Asia. But this year, we're about 60% domestic students and about 40% international students. And the domestic students are coming from wide and far, further than what we expected. International students, we were surprised despite all of the challenges of getting here and the dilemmas with the global health pandemic, the travel restrictions. We were very excited about the number of students who decided to join us virtually. And many of them will hope to get here in the spring, but if not, they will join us virtually for the duration of their programs. Yeah, so one of the things I think that we launched this year was a very comprehensive onboarding program. One of the things that we recognized was that people were sort of sitting in limbo, sort of trying to figure out what the world was going to look like. We wanted to give them something, our admitted students, something else to think about. So we ramped up our onboarding program called Kelley Launch. And instead of being 2 weeks before the start of classes, it was 8 weeks before the start of classes. And we had a wide range of activities, and some of the content, it sounds like it's similar to the Jumpstart program there at Kelley, but we also focused a lot on our new thoughtful leadership certification and a lot of the soft skills. They worked very closely with the Career Development Center, and I definitely think that played a part in us converting a lot of those admitted students into enrolled students. We do have a banner year for deferrals. We had a very liberal deferral process. Actually, we had so many deferrals that we've now launched an entire sort of engagement strategy with those deferrers because, we want to make sure that we're staying engaged with them in a very substantive and impactful way over the course of the next 6 to 9 months in hopes that they will join us next fall.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think that's an idea that is a kind of a best practice idea for every school because every school has had that phenomena this year, a lot of deferrals. I was surprised that your business analytics program now has the largest cohort. That must have happened recently because, you're in New York, it's the capital of finance. I would have expected your master's in finance to be number one by far. Have you seen a lot of growth in your analytics program?
Yeah, significant growth. Actually, most of our STEM-based programs and nearly all of our master's programs have a STEM designation, but the business analytics has seen the biggest growth over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, significant. I think, we were in 2020 and 2016, and incoming class was about 55, and now it's at 130. So,
Wow.
yeah, significant growth.
Yeah. Now, if I had the benefit and the privilege of being on each of your campuses, the first thing I would do is have lunch with some of your students, because that's how you really find out the nitty-gritty about the program, the school, the culture, what's great, what's maybe not so great. So tell me, if I were to be able to sit at lunch, Emma, with 3 of your students in the commerce programs, what would be the things that are the hallmarks of their experience? What are the things that they take away, the things that they remember most, the things that they enjoy the most?
I'd say number one, it's the connections they make with each other, with the faculty, with the alumni, and with the employers. I mean, I think if you talk with any current student or an alum, they're going to refer first and foremost to the people that they meet that are part of this program or connected with it and connected with the school. And I think that's really important as you explore graduate school options, is looking at the school's network and looking at the class makeup of the different programs. And, can you envision yourself? Do you want to be part of this? I always say that, the people you go to graduate school with not only become the basis of great friends, but really the foundation of your professional network as well. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing that I'd say that they really like is how integrated and hands-on the curriculum is, that business isn't being taught purely in a siloed manner, that it's very case-based, which I think a lot of business schools use, but we actually bring companies into the classroom as well, so students can do hands-on problem solving and consulting projects so they can apply what they're learning. And then that's really helpful too, because it helps make them immediately work ready, as Bipin mentioned earlier. And I think the third takeaway, and unfortunately it may not happen this year, but it would be their global experience as part of our program. That's really a core value of McIntire, is offering, whether it's built in as a required part and component of any of our graduate or undergraduate programs, or making it an elective experience. But having a global experience is really helpful to kind of develop this global mindset, prepare someone to work in cross-cultural environments, and really understand international business and global competencies.
And typically, where do the students go?
For their global adventures. So for the MS in Commerce program, we actually, our Master's in Management has a built-in global immersion experience. It's a 5-credit class that at the very end of the program, we send all of our students to different regions of the world to understand and see business firsthand. So usually over that 3-week class, they will travel to more than 20 different companies. They'll visit multiple cities or countries within that region, and just really get kind of an enterprise-wide view of how to do business on the ground and in person. You know, I think this past summer we grounded that, obviously due to the pandemic, and we redesigned that class virtually. We were still able to bring many of the international thought leaders and guest speakers into that virtual classroom environment. Hopefully, very soon we'll be back on. Personally, I miss traveling as well. I'm sure all of you do as well. You know, personally, we'll be able to get back up and running and be able to offer it as it's originally intended.
Right. Bipin, with 3 hallmarks that your graduates would tell me about, what are they?
So the first one would be, the sense of community, the sense of family. We are, as Kelley, as you know, John, very much a Midwestern culture-infused set of programs, right? I can see Julia there nodding her head. So I think that's very much part of our ethos. So the fact that we are more like a family, that they're all in it together, it's a very supportive, collaborative environment rather than, the competitive world that they sometimes expect a business school to be. Second, they'll tell you that they are getting pushed beyond their limits that they knew existed, that in spite of everything that they had heard about the program and how it's going to get them to explore depths and capabilities that they didn't know they had, they are still exceeding all of that. And third, they'll tell you that although it's hard, they are learning so much every given day that they are actually able to measure their progress, right? So day on day, they're saying that, we feel how much we are learning and, how much better our skills are developing almost on a continual basis.
Interesting. Julia, what's the cool, fun things that your students would tell me about?
Well, if anyone is steeped at all in Michigan tradition, Bo Schembechler is one of our hallmark human beings. And one of his sayings is the team, the team, the team. And I would flip that and simply say, I think the first thing that these students would say is the people, the people, the people. All of us here in this group of my colleagues, all of us talked about our class sizes. We're not talking about 300 and 400 people. And so these students get to know one another and create these connections first amongst themselves. I think that's really where the core of it starts. And then you start to go out to the community. You start to think about your faculty experiences, your club experiences, your resource experiences, and then maybe staff. Maybe we show up somewhere in that people group as well. But then I think on top of that, it's how the resources of Ross and a school complement and speak to what is actually happening in their coursework, so that their coursework comes to life within the resources that they are using, but also in the clubs and the community engagement that they are doing as well. And then I think, as you mentioned, John, each of our campus spaces have their own character. And so I think the last piece is they would talk about Ann Arbor. They would talk about this college town. And until you experience a place and you're in a place, that is very deep and meaningful for a lot of students and a lot of us here.
Now, I know in your MBA program, of course, a core differentiator is your experiential learning opportunities, in particular MAP. Do you have similar experiential learning opportunities in your specialty master's programs or not?
We do. Our students can actually take advantage of the MAP coursework framework for themselves.
Mhm.
Supply chain has a very specific experiential learning expectation in the consulting studio, which is a huge piece of how they take a business problem from a company and really work with it and get to know and work within a group, as well as work with that company directly. And then the Master of Accounting students also have those types of opportunities. But I would say that in some ways they're a different kind of group. They have a different sort of focus. They're ready to do that CPA and jump into one of the big four. And that's really where they live.
Now, Lawrence, Julia mentions that Ann Arbor is part of the equation. I imagine that for your students, New York City is a very big part of the equation.
Yeah, one of our mottos is, Fordham is my university, but New York is my campus. So without a doubt, the students have an opportunity to take full advantage of the integration of their sort of academic experience into living in New York and everything that New York has to offer. And so, whether it is connecting with alumni, right? So we've got a number of alums. Our largest batch of alums live in the tri-state area. So it's very easy to engage with those alumni sort of in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And they engage with a career services team and the students. They engage with student clubs and organizations, speaker series. There's just so many opportunities for those students to engage with alums because they're in close proximity. And as some of my colleagues have mentioned, this concept of community. I know we have a lot of programs, but we're a relatively small business school. And so the students really take advantage of the opportunity to really get to know their peers from all over the world and really get to know and sort of build really strong relationships with the faculty members. And I'd say, one of the other things that sort of stands out and what the students will tell you is the concept of business with purpose. And so we're a Jesuit business school. And so with that, ethics and ethical and principled leadership is integrated into sort of everything that we do. And so there are lots of opportunities for the students to take advantage of that, to hone those skills, to learn more, to gain insights from each other about principled leadership and business with purpose.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Now, to what extent do you have soft skills in your programs? I mean, after all, many specialty master's programs are very special, meaning narrow and deep. And you might not automatically assume that you're going to get the soft skills like leading, collaborating with team members in an effective way, persuasively presenting your point of view in a presentation, communicating, networking to get things done. But it's actually, most of these programs do have that element in them. So how do you teach those soft skills in your specialty master's programs? Lawrence?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned before, we have a pretty comprehensive onboarding program during the summer
Right.
before the students start. And so they get their first introduction to, we like to call them the soft skills, but they're actually the hardest skills. So that the development of those skills, it starts with our Gabelli launch, our onboarding program. It is filtered through our thoughtful leadership certification. And then we have a full service career development office that works with all of the students in their individual, sort of in aggregate. Again, we've got a lot of students, so they work with them in aggregate as well as individually based on the program. So, the skill development for those students, as my colleague mentioned, who are going into accounting, looks a little different than those students who are going into data science in our information technology or business analytics, or looks a little different from those folks that are going into digital media management in our media management program. So we're able to customize some of that development through collaborations with the faculty program directors, as well as our career development center.
Right. Now, Bipin, information systems is a pretty heavy-duty technical thing. Do people get a dose of soft skills in your program?
Actually, they do, right? So we kind of define information systems as creating a value for the business. And actually, in fact, I was teaching them this morning and telling them, although what I'm teaching you is an exceptionally technical topic, what you ultimately do is selling solutions, selling ideas, selling concepts, right? So, soft skills are exceptionally important: communication skills, professionalism skills. in information systems, in industry, there is usually never a case where you're working alone. It's always team-based, and the teams tend to be larger and they tend to be global, right?
Right.
So we have integrated elements of professionalism, collaboration, teamwork, and ethics. And one of the defining things that we do is we have a heavy dose of teamwork in the program, but instead of just putting them into a team and telling them figure out how to work, we actually use their team how to be effective in teamwork. So the team itself is very closely managed. There is a constant feedback loop. They are taught the skill sets that it takes to be an effective team member. And through that process, and it's somewhat of a painful process. And that's why, as I said earlier, it's very important for us to create those diverse teams that will get students out of their comfort zone, thinking differently, thinking innovatively, and then ultimately being able to sell those solutions, right? The experiential learning component, where we bring in a lot of our alums, a lot of our corporate partners, and our capstone project, they're actually forced to put into practice a lot of the skills that we teach them on the soft skills side. And I do agree that, that's the hardest skill to actually acquire, right? Ultimately, if you are a very smart person, acquiring the technical skills is easy, right? Especially when you've got the caliber of professors that we have here at Kelley. But getting that soft skill part of it, the professionalism, networking, you actually have to change as a person. And that is a much taller order. And we do that through a deliberate, planned, designed process with elements integrated throughout the program from, right before they start all the way through graduation and beyond.
Great. And Emma, obviously in a Master's of Commerce or Management program, by the very nature of that program, you're going to get leadership, team dynamics, motivation lessons, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, we put all of our students into high-performing dynamic teams and diverse teams as well. Right from the beginning, they work with their team the entire fall semester across all of their classes. I think students probably present upwards of 15 to 17 times throughout the entire 10-month process as well. And so really honing those communication and presentation skills. I can't emphasize enough how important the soft skills are. I say it's the technical that gets you hired, but it's the soft skills that get you promoted. And that's definitely the case with what we're seeing. I think too, the soft skills are what gives students and graduates confidence to go out and be immediately client ready and be able to get up and make presentations and be an effective contributor from day one.
Yeah, true. And I know at Ross, that's a big emphasis. Leadership is a really big part of your program, right?
Absolutely. And I'm laughing because we just recently had a program chat with our current supply chain management students. And one of the pieces of feedback and conversation was they said, I've got 7 groups that I'm working with. I'm just so grouped. But, these students don't ever work in isolation. And none of us really, truly ever work in isolation. And so the students, as part of their curriculum, are in teamwork settings all of the time. And then outside of the curriculum, there are specific opportunities for students, including the Business Impact Challenge, which is for all of the one-year master's students to engage in a problem as a group and present. And then we have other really interesting challenges, such as the Crisis Challenge, where you're put in a simulation and you're all part of an organization and something terrible breaks. Now what do you do? So the students are doing this in their classes, they're doing it outside of their classes, and Josh, our wonderful career resources person, will be nudging them throughout their entire time to make sure that they are engaging in workshops and programs as well.
Right. Which leads to career outcomes. Talk a little bit about the career outcomes of the graduates of your 3 specialty master's programs.
Well, the Master of Accounting, I don't want to say it's black and white, but it's as close to black and white as we get in our world. Many of the students who are coming into this program already actually have a job offer in hand from one of the Big 4. We will have a percentage of students that are not quite there yet or have a different idea of what they want to do with accounting. Perhaps they want to take it back to their family business and be able to work in that realm for their family. But that student group is pretty well set in terms of what they're looking to do. For the Master of Management, we have a really interesting variety of where they go after. Many of them come into the program really set on consulting. That's one of the big sort of pieces that they're really interested in. And yes, we do have some students who go that route, but we have students who will go into a different area as well. Or one of my favorites, I've been reading applications. I don't know where Emma, Bippin, and Lawrence are right now, but I'm in application reading world. And I love the students in that program who are saying to me, I'm going to go get my law degree, but I need to know how the business of law works. And I want to be that kind of lawyer one day.
Yeah.
Supply chain, obviously, as you mentioned before, we have people heading into Amazon, into Walmart, and into different parts of the supply chain. So they might be in the beginning parts, they might be the end production. But that is, primarily sort of a consulting and business analyst realm that they're going into.
Right. Good. And Bipin, I know you actually have 97% placement of your graduates by commencement, not 3 months, not 6 months after, with an average starting compensation of $85,000. How do you do that?
Looks like you went on mute there. So, doing that actually means that you are creating a product that the market wants, right? So we do have students that will come into the program with an offer, or they will go through fall recruiting. Actually, we will hit about 65, 70% students having offers by the end of the fall semester. And then only a smaller proportion are actually left in the spring. So, we are creating very consistent, very well-trained students who understand technology, and more importantly, they understand how to apply their technology concepts to a business world from the perspective of digitizing the business processes, or reinventing the business processes, or even reinventing their business models. So, that skill set is very unique. We have actually better availability for students who are very deeply technical. We have a lot of availability for students who are great at business. If you look at it nationally, there is actually a very small number of programs that create students that can effectively work at that intersection. And then, there's such a big demand, and that's why I said, and as you quoted in the very beginning, we can't keep enough of them on the shelf, so to speak.
What kind of companies hire them?
So about 60% of our students go into consulting. In addition to the big four, it could be Accenture, it could be IBM. We also have a number of mid-sized boutique technology consulting firms. Then we have some of our bigger corporate recruiters, GM, GE, Whirlpool. And then we have, of course, the technology companies, and Amazon, AWS, Salesforce has been a very strong recruiter, Google, Facebook, and then they kind of start scattering out into a large number of different firms.
So a pretty wide variety of companies.
Pretty wide variety, yes.
And Lawrence, given the great portfolio that you have, I'm imagining that your graduates go off in every kind of direction imaginable.
Yeah, they do. And so if I'm thinking about our, the students in our finance areas, they go into a wide variety of different functions with sub-functions within finance, both within the financial services sector as well as finance as a function within other, sectors and industries. The students in our analytics programs, they go on to do great things in consulting, data science, data warehousing, predictive modeling. It's just, you're right, it's a wide variety of different opportunities. I think that's also, I think, a modern day sort of specialized masters, regardless of what it's in. I think most of our schools are doing a really good job to prepare these students to really be flexible and adaptable to a wide range of options within the general sort of area that the specialization is in.
Right, yeah. And I imagine that your students and graduates go far beyond New York City to get those jobs. in some
I do.
cases.
There's no doubt that, this is one of the destination regions, whether it's in New York City or the New York tri-state area. Without a doubt, we have a strong placement geographically here in the tri-state area, but, we have representation all around the world.
Right. And Emma, your master's in commerce students, where do they end up?
It really kind of runs the gamut. I mean, I think the MS in Commerce, because of the specialized tracks, we're seeing placement in analytical roles within consulting. Consulting is very popular. I'd say that a third of all of our students end up in consulting, but also technology. We also have marketing and management as a track, and so that's much more versatile. So we see students who go into marketing and analytical or sales or new product development or project management. I also think that just business skills in general are applicable in just about every industry. So whether it is a traditional business role or if it's someone who wants business skills to complement their existing major or passion, we see that as well, whether that's healthcare or retail, nonprofit. I see a lot more students interested in entrepreneurship and startups as well. That's an exciting area. And obviously business skills are applicable there as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
If you get a specialty master's degree, particularly coming out of undergrad, does that mean you don't need and you probably won't get an MBA?
That's an interesting question. We have just now probably over 1,000 alumni of our MS in Commerce program, and we've tracked it. So probably less than 5% to date have gone back for an MBA. I think what it does do is it's not meant to be a replacement. I feel like a lot of people who do go get an MBA are either looking to reach that next level in their career or their industry, or they're looking to pivot in their careers. And what a specialized master's can do is it can help set you apart. So what we find is that already having the master's in business is a great way to actually make yourself more competitive for some of the top tier MBA programs. And I'd say the same thing, echoing Julia, same with law school applications as well.
Yeah. And of course, a master's in management or commerce is a broader degree than many other specialized master's degrees. And what we often see,
my office life times out if I
dark.
don't move.
So what I was saying is in these other specialty areas, in many cases, young people go into companies or organizations and they have specialized roles, and many of these degrees are meant for that. And many people who go for an MBA, in fact, are looking for the general management perspective that you probably provide in your master's in management commerce. So it may very well be that if I get my supply chain management degree from Ross, or I get my degree in information systems from Bippen at Kelley, or my analytics degree from Lawrence at Fordham, 3-5 years down the road, I may want to get the MBA to get that broader scope of total business enterprise. So we have a few more minutes left. Here's what I'd like each of us to do. What kind of advice would you give a young person who's sort of grappling with the decision of, do I do this program? How do I know this is for me? If it's not a natural passion, and what I really want the degree for is just to get my career kickstarted. I want to go with a really good company. I want to have a great experience. I want to work with really terrific people. And really, whether I major in supply chain or business analytics or management is almost less important to me than those other criteria. Working for a great company, working with really good people in a culture that I admire, doing meaningful work. What advice do you have for them, Lawrence?
Yeah, I would say, one piece of advice I'd give is, think about those. First of all, you have many options, so you shouldn't limit yourself. This very different than in the MBA space, in the master space. There are lots of options. So really, look at yourself in the mirror and sort of think about those things that you really like, and think about those experiences that you've had in the past that you felt yourself flourishing and thriving on, and sort of look for those opportunities. at our business schools for programs that sort of connect to that, and then dive in. You know, as my colleagues mentioned, you know, the specialized master's isn't the end all be all. It's a good starting point. And I think all of our programs, whether it's a specialized master's in finance or it's a generalized, you know, master's of science in management, it's going to provide you with some key and foundational skills that are going to set you up to really take that next step in your career, whatever that may be.
Yeah. Julia, your advice?
I want to build upon that. Thank you for that, Lawrence, because one of the things that I think, in addition to looking at yourself in the mirror and asking some questions, one of the key things that so many students and so many human beings need to grapple with is imposter syndrome. And I want every person to research and to question that through this process, because I think many students, when they're facing down a top tier business school, think that that space is not for them and that they don't belong there, or that a business student is A, B, or C. And what they need to know is that there are so many different types of students and people that walk through a business school. And there's a program for you. There will be a program for you. Do your research, like Lawrence said. Check the imposter syndrome. Make sure you put that in the corner where it belongs. And also reach out to the people who are part of these programs. Every application that comes through a program is read by a human being. And so we're here for you. That's our job. We really do this because we love connecting students with the program that's going to take them where they want to go.
That's really good advice, because a lot of young people are a little bit shy and feel like if they call you up and they ask you questions about your program, they're bothering you. They're not bothering you.
They're not bothering me, but what I will say, John, I will put a caveat. Read a little bit of the website before you call me, because if what you're calling me about is all on the website, I might say you haven't done your research, right?
Exactly right. You got to do your research. You got to ask questions that can't be answered by what's online.
And reach out to the alumni. They love their schools. They love talking about their experience. They are there to be a resource as well.
Emma, is it possible to actually be a fly on a wall for a class before you apply, particularly now with hybrid formats?
Yeah, and I do think, you know, this virtual environment is also an opportunity for people to engage with different schools and programs, which they normally may not be able to. Whether that's, you know, attending an event like this, or sitting in on a virtual class, or having a virtual coffee chat with an alum or with a current student, all of which we offer at McIntire. And so my advice would be to do your due diligence and talk to as many people affiliated with various programs. The more you know about the programs that are out there, the more informed and decision you're going to make. And a lot of it comes down to fit. Is this a good fit for me? Are you a good fit for us? I mean, that's kind of when we read applications, that's what we're thinking as well. And so don't hesitate, because we're all, like Julia said, we're all here to help you throughout this process. And, you know, nobody wakes up at the age of 10 and says, I want to work in graduate admissions, right? But we're here because we love working and connecting with students and making a difference and being able to connect you with the right paths. Julia's laughing.
Pippin, last words of advice to those would-be applicants out there.
Yeah, so you know, a lot of people, a lot of students, prospective students that I speak to, don't even know that they want a graduate degree, don't even know that they need a graduate degree, right? So I usually start out by saying that, you know, if you want to be a leader in whatever space, at some point you have to get a graduate degree. That is almost becoming a requirement to get into upper management, into a senior leadership role. So then the question is, do you want to do it now or do you want to do it later? Right? And there is a big case to be made for doing it now, because you have momentum, you are currently in school, or you haven't really got set into your career. And while in theory, you know, being out for 4 or 5 years and coming back to graduate school sounds fantastic, a lot of times life gets in the way, right? But I also tell them, you know, you pursued undergrad because, you know, your parents, your mentors, you know, it was an expectation that you do an undergraduate program, right? The graduate program is what you do for yourself, right? Discover your passion. This is the time for you to actually connect your passion to a career rather than just pursue a passion because that's what you loved in high school, right? And a lot of times students grow, they develop. Many times we get students because of internship experiences where they go out and they work in healthcare or they work in finance or they work in supply chain, and they realize that all of this is driven by technology, and say, come back and say, you know, I really do want to get that core of technology before I enter the workforce. So do it sooner rather than later.
All right. Well, hey, what a privilege it's been to spend the last hour with each and every one of you. I've learned a lot myself, and I hope our audience has learned a lot as well. So thank you, Julia, over
My
at
pleasure.
Ross, University of Michigan, Emma at UVA, the McIntire School of Commerce, thank you. Vipin at Indiana University's Kelley School of Business, and Lawrence in New York City at Fordham University's Kelley School of Business. Hey, thanks everyone. Stay safe and healthy. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.